Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into this idea of aligning with God's purpose.
Okay.
Which I have to admit,
Yeah.
can feel kind of overwhelming sometimes, you know?
Absolutely.
It's like, where do you even start?
Right.
But it's got me thinking about this week's message from Chucky's Corner. It really hit home for me.
Yeah.
Embracing God's purpose often means setting boundaries.
Yes.
And walking with courage.
It does.
And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
That's so true. We're chosen, you know, meant to focus on faith, let go of all the negativity,
Yeah.
really trust in his plan for us.
Absolutely.
And each step we take brings us closer to miracles, healing, and divine peace.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So beautiful.
It is.
So I'm really curious
Yeah.
to see how these sources, you know, the ones we've got lined up for today, how they connect with Chucky's message.
Okay.
We've got chapter 3 from The Path of the Chosen, which talks about boundaries.
Yes.
And then these excerpts about biblical financial principles.
It's interesting.
It's like, are they going to echo what Chucky's saying?
Right.
Or will they throw us some curveballs?
Yeah. Let's find out.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
So first up, this idea of being chosen
Okay.
from the path of the chosen.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can feel a bit, well,
I know what you mean.
exclusive, you know?
A little bit. Yeah.
Like, it's just for a select few,
Right.
not for everyone.
Yeah. That's a common concern, I think.
Yeah.
But the book makes it clear that being chosen isn't about being superior
Okay.
or exclusive at all.
Gotcha.
It's more about recognizing that each of us has a unique calling, a specific role to play in God's grand design.
So like we each have our own part
Exactly.
play in this big,
Yeah.
beautiful story.
It's like a puzzle, you know?
Oh, I like that.
Each piece is different, but
Yeah.
they all fit together to create the complete picture.
That's such a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah.
So it's less about being better than others.
Right.
And more about understanding that we each have something
Yes.
special to contribute.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that verse, 1 Peter 2.9, where it talks about believers being a chosen people, a royal priesthood,
That's a good one.
set apart for God's work.
Exactly. And it highlights the honor
Yes.
and responsibility that comes with being set apart for God's work.
Absolutely.
We're called to use our unique gifts and talents to serve a purpose that's bigger than ourselves.
And that takes courage.
It does.
Like Chucky's Corner said,
Yeah.
stepping into that chosen role,
Right.
embracing your unique path.
It's not always easy.
No, it's not.
It often means going against the grain,
Yeah.
stepping outside of your comfort zone.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to stand out, to be different,
Yes.
to follow God's leading, even when it doesn't make sense to everyone else.
Even when it's hard.
Exactly.
And the book actually offers some really practical advice
Oh, that's good.
on how to start recognizing your calling.
Okay. I like practical advice.
Yeah, me too.
So what does it say?
It encourages you to reflect on your talents, your passions, and your spiritual gifts.
So think about what comes naturally to you.
Yes. What lights you up?
Yeah.
What brings you joy?
What are you good at?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then ask yourself, how might these align with what God is calling me to do?
Oh, that's good.
How can I use these gifts to make a difference in the world?
That's so empowering. It's not just about waiting for a sign
Right.
or a lightning bolt.
It's not about being passive. It's
Yeah.
about paying attention to those clues that are already within you.
It's like those seeds of your purpose are already there,
Yes.
just waiting to be nurtured and brought to fruition.
It's about uncovering that hidden potential
Yes.
and then having the courage to step into it,
Even when it feels scary or uncertain.
even when you don't have all the answers.
It's like taking a leap of faith.
It is.
And speaking of things that can feel scary,
Oh, yeah.
let's move on to this concept of boundaries,
Okay.
which chapter 3 of The Path of the Chosen dives into. I have to admit, setting boundaries is something I've always struggled with.
Really?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do.
I want to be helpful and available, you know?
I get that.
But sometimes it just leaves me feeling so drained and depleted.
Yeah, I've been there.
I've given too much of myself.
It's a common struggle for sure.
It is.
And the chapter addresses this really well.
Okay.
It emphasizes that boundaries aren't about isolating yourself from others
Okay.
or becoming selfish.
Not about shutting people out.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about protecting your heart, your
Yeah.
energy, and your time so that you can really pour into the things that
Yeah.
truly matter.
I like that.
Think of it like building a fence around your garden.
Okay.
You're not shutting the world out.
right.
You're creating a safe and nurturing space.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that verse, Proverbs 4.23. Guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life.
It's a good one.
makes you realize that the things we allow into our lives can have a profound impact on our well-being.
Absolutely. Our hearts are precious.
They are.
And they need to be protected.
Sometimes that means setting boundaries with people or activities, even information that might be draining our energy.
It can really pull us away from our purpose.
And it takes a lot of courage to do that.
It does.
Say no
It's not always easy.
to things that might be good in themselves,
Right.
but aren't necessarily aligned with your path.
Yeah.
You know, like Chucky's Corner said, there's that connection between embracing your purpose
Yes.
and walking with courage.
It takes guts to prioritize what truly matters.
It does.
Even when it means disappointing others.
Right.
Or stepping outside of social expectations.
Sometimes you got to go against the grain.
You do.
But true courage
Yeah.
isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act in alignment with your values and your calling,
Yes.
even when you feel afraid.
That's powerful.
It is.
It reminds us that setting boundaries is actually an act of self-love
Oh, I like that.
and a way of honoring the unique purpose
Yeah.
that God has placed within each of us.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, this chapter also touches on some practical areas
Oh, okay.
where boundaries might be needed.
Like what?
It mentions things like relationships,
Okay.
technology,
Yeah.
and media.
Those are big ones.
Huge parts of our lives these days.
They are.
And they can either be sources of joy and connection,
Yeah.
or major drains on our time,
Right.
our energy,
Definitely.
even our mental health.
It's all about finding that healthy balance,
Yeah.
setting limits, making intentional choices about what we allow into our lives.
It's like we need to become the guardians of our own hearts and minds.
Yes.
Making sure that the things we're consuming, the people we're spending time with,
Right.
the activities we're engaging in are actually nourishing us rather than depleting us.
It's about being mindful, discerning, and proactive
I like that.
in creating a life that supports our spiritual growth and allows us to fully step into that purpose
Yes.
God has for us.
It makes you think about all the different areas of our lives where boundaries might be needed.
It does.
But where do we even start?
That's a great question, and it's something we can explore further as we continue our deep dive.
Sounds good.
But first,
Okay.
let's shift gears a bit and bring in this other source you mentioned,
Right.
the excerpts on biblical financial principles.
Okay.
I'm curious to see how this connects to the ideas we've been discussing about purpose, courage, and boundaries.
Me too. It seems like a bit of a jump
I know what you mean.
from the path of the chosen.
It's a different angle.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling these sources are going to connect in some really surprising ways.
I think you're right. There's often more overlap between our spiritual and practical lives
Yep.
than we realize.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling these financial principles might reveal some unexpected insights
Okay.
about how to live a more purposeful and aligned life.
I can't wait to find out.
Me too. So, what initially grabbed your attention about this financial text?
Well, one of the first things that struck me was this idea that the Bible can actually be viewed as a manual
Okay.
for wealth creation and management.
That's not something you hear every day.
Not really.
It is surprising,
It is.
but when you think about it,
Yeah.
the Bible is full of wisdom about handling resources responsibly,
Absolutely.
making wise investments,
Yeah.
and creating a legacy that extends beyond our own lifetimes.
And these are principles that have been used by successful people throughout history,
Wow.
in all walks of life.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth for its own sake,
No.
but about managing it in a way that honors God
Yes.
and serves a greater purpose.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that verse in Matthew 25.1430, the parable of the talents.
Ah, yes.
It's about recognizing that everything we have, our time, our talents, our financial resources,
as a thing.
is a gift from God.
Yes.
And we're called to be good stewards of those gifts.
Absolutely. It makes you realize that our relationship with money can actually reveal a lot about our values and priorities.
does.
Are we using our resources wisely?
Yeah.
Are we being generous? Are we investing in things that matter?
It's all connected.
It is.
Our financial choices reflect our beliefs
Yes.
about abundance, scarcity,
Yeah.
generosity,
Right.
our overall worldview.
And as we'll see, these beliefs play a huge role in shaping our reality
Okay.
and influencing our ability to step into the fullness of our purpose.
This is getting really interesting.
It is.
It's like we're starting to peel back the layers
Yes.
and see how all these different aspects of our lives are interconnected. But I have a confession to make
Oh.
when I think about biblical financial principles.
Okay.
The first thing that pops into my head
Yeah.
is tithing.
Okay.
And honestly,
Yeah.
it sometimes feels a bit outdated.
Right.
Like, is that really relevant in today's world?
That's a common question.
It is.
Yeah. And it's something that this text actually addresses head on.
Okay.
While tithing is definitely a biblical principle, it's often misunderstood.
In what way?
It's not about blindly giving away 10% of your income out of obligation or fear.
Okay.
It's more about cultivating a heart of generosity,
Okay.
recognizing that everything we have ultimately belongs to God, and
Right.
choosing to give back a portion as an act of worship and gratitude.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
It's not about the amount, it's about the heart behind it.
Exactly. And this text highlights a really interesting principle.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's often counterintuitive.
Okay.
Giving can actually increase wealth.
Wait, so you're saying that giving away money
Yeah.
can actually lead to greater abundance?
It's a principle that challenges our human logic,
It does.
but it's something that many successful people have found to be true.
Wow.
It's about trusting that God is the ultimate provider,
Right.
and that our generosity opens up a flow of blessings in our lives.
So it's like shifting our mindset from scarcity to abundance,
It is.
believing that God will provide for us,
Yes.
even as we give generously.
And it's not just about financial abundance.
No.
It's about an overall sense of fullness and prosperity in every area of our lives.
Wow.
When we give freely,
Yeah,
we open ourselves up to receive even more in return.
that's a powerful concept.
It is.
But I have to admit, shifting my mindset from scarcity to abundance feels really challenging.
Yeah, it can be a process.
I've always been a bit of a worrier, especially when it comes to finances.
I hear that.
How do you even begin to make that shift?
That's a great question, and it's something we can explore further as we continue our deep dive. But first, I want to touch on one more key concept that both of these sources emphasize: mindset.
Okay.
Both the path of the chosen and this financial text highlight the incredible power of our thoughts and beliefs in shaping our reality.
This reminds me of that quote we see everywhere.
Which one?
Your thoughts become your reality.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
But
one.
it's one thing to say it,
Right.
and another to actually live it.
Absolutely. It's not about some magical thinking where you just wish for something and it appears.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that our thoughts have a powerful influence on our emotions, our actions,
Yeah.
and ultimately our outcomes.
So our thoughts really do matter.
They do.
And the Bible provides some really practical wisdom on how to cultivate a positive, faith-filled mindset that aligns with God's abundance.
On all ears.
Okay, so where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start?
Well, I think the first step is recognizing the power of our thoughts.
The Bible says in Proverbs 23:7, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he."
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It's a reminder that our thoughts are not just fleeting things.
Right.
They actually shape who we are and what we experience.
You really do.
So if we're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts, anxieties, and fears,
Yeah.
we might be inadvertently creating the very reality.
It's like we're planting seeds
Oh,
with
okay.
every thought we have.
I like that.
And those seeds eventually grow into the fruits of our lives.
So if we want to experience abundance, joy, peace, and purpose, we need to start planting the right kinds of seeds.
Exactly.
This is so eye-opening. It makes me wonder what kind of seeds I've been planting with my thoughts.
Yeah, me too.
And more importantly,
Yeah.
how can I start to cultivate a more positive, faith-filled mindset that aligns with God's abundance?
That's a great question, and it's something we can delve into further as we continue our exploration.
Okay, sounds good.
But before we move on, I want to pause for a moment and invite you, our listener, to reflect on what we've discussed so far.
Yes, that's a good idea.
What's resonating with you? What are some areas where you might need to set boundaries,
Yeah.
embrace your unique calling, or cultivate a more abundant mindset?
Take a moment to ponder those questions.
Yes.
As we head into the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we'll be back in a flash
Right.
to explore even more insights from these fascinating sources.
Sounds good. It's fascinating how our thoughts about finances can be so powerful, shaping our experiences and influencing our ability to step into our purpose.
It really is. And, it makes me wonder what other practical wisdom the Bible offers about handling money and resources. I mean, this financial text we're looking at,
Yeah.
it goes beyond just general stewardship.
It does. It dives into some pretty specific insights.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah?
So what else is in there?
Well, one of the most striking points
Okay.
is the emphasis on saving and investing. Oh, interesting.
It's like the Bible is encouraging us to build long-term security and abundance.
It's like planning ahead.
Exactly.
It's just like in that story of Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream about the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine.
Right.
And Joseph advises Pharaoh to save during the good years.
Yes.
To prepare for the tough times ahead.
Timeless advice.
It is.
It is.
And this financial wisdom goes beyond just literal finances, doesn't it?
I think so.
It applies to our spiritual lives as well.
Absolutely. Just like saving money for a rainy day, we need to nourish our spirits
Yes.
with prayer, scripture, and community
Okay.
so that we have that strength.
When those inevitable challenges arise.
Exactly.
It's like building a spiritual savings account,
I love that.
making deposits of faith and resilience.
Yeah.
So that we have something to draw on when we need it most.
That's a great way to put it. It's about cultivating those inner resources that will sustain us through those difficult times.
Yep.
And this financial text also talks about the importance of diligence and hard work.
Oh, yes.
It reminds us that wealth, whether financial or spiritual,
Right.
isn't just magically bestowed upon us.
No, it takes effort,
It does.
planning, and wise decision making.
It's about being active participants in our own well-being.
Yes. Not just waiting for things to happen.
Exactly.
We have to be willing to put in the effort
Yes.
to make those wise choices and to trust that God will bless our endeavors.
It's like that saying, God helps those who help themselves.
That's a good one.
It's not about sitting back and expecting miracles to fall from the sky.
No.
It's about using our God-given talents and resources
Right.
to create the life we want and to fulfill the purpose He has for us.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our lives.
Yes.
Making wise choices and trusting that God will meet us in our efforts.
You know, all this talk about hard work and challenges
Yeah.
makes me think about chapter 2 of The Path of the Chosen.
Okay.
That chapter really resonated with me.
Which one was that again?
It's titled, The Journey Begins, From Isolation to Transformation.
Oh, right. Yes.
And it talks about how sometimes when you start walking a new path, you can feel really alone.
It's a common experience for sure.
It is.
And the chapter acknowledges that feeling of isolation, but it also reframes it in a really powerful way.
Yeah. It's like it's saying that those times of feeling alone are not a punishment,
Right.
but a preparation.
Exactly. It's often during those times of solitude
Okay.
that we draw closest to God. We shed old patterns that no longer serve us.
Right.
And we undergo a profound transformation.
It's like that time in the wilderness that so many biblical figures experience.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Moses, Jesus, Joseph. They all went through periods of isolation
Yes.
that prepared them for their calling.
It's like being in a cocoon.
Oh, I like that.
It might feel dark and cramped,
Yeah.
but something beautiful is happening within those walls.
That's such a beautiful image.
Yeah.
It's about trusting that even when we feel alone, God is working in us, shaping us, preparing us for something greater.
The chapter talks about this idea of isolation as purification.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a refining fire
Okay.
that burns away the impurities, leaving behind a stronger, more resilient version of ourselves.
And that reminds me of Chucky's Corner and its message about letting go of negativity.
Oh, yeah.
It's like during those times of isolation, God is helping us to let go of the things that are holding us back, the fears, the doubts, the limiting beliefs,
Yes.
so that we can emerge as our true selves.
It's about embracing those times of solitude, not as a punishment, but as an opportunity
Okay.
for deep inner work, for connecting with our true selves,
Yes.
and for aligning more fully with God's purpose for our lives.
It makes you wonder, what are some areas of your life where you might be feeling a sense of isolation right now?
That's a good question.
Could it be that God is using those experiences to refine you,
Yeah.
to prepare you for something greater?
These are powerful questions to reflect on.
They are.
And sometimes those periods of feeling lost or alone
Yeah.
can actually be catalysts for the most profound personal growth.
It's like those times force us to dig deep, to rely on our inner resources,
Yeah.
and to discover a strength we didn't even know we had.
Absolutely.
And on the other side of those challenges, we often discover our true purpose, our resilience, and a deeper connection to God.
It's like we're being stripped down to our essence, to
Okay.
the core of who we are, so
Yeah.
that we can be rebuilt stronger, more aligned, and more prepared for the journey ahead.
It reminds me of how the path of the chosen keep circling back to this concept of righteousness.
Yes, it is a key theme throughout the book. And remember, righteousness isn't about following a bunch of rules or trying to be perfect.
Right.
It's about an inner transformation that aligns us with God's will and allows his love to flow through us.
And one of the most powerful ways to cultivate that inner righteousness, according to the book, is through forgiveness.
Forgiveness, yes, that's huge.
Chapter 7 really dives into this. And it's something I think we all struggle with at times.
For sure. Forgiveness is absolutely essential for spiritual growth. And it's a process that works on multiple levels. There's forgiving others, which can be incredibly difficult, especially when we've been deeply hurt.
Yeah, it can be so hard to let go of that pain.
It can.
And then there's forgiving ourselves, which can be even harder.
Sometimes,
The chapter explains that forgiveness isn't about condoning someoe's actions or pretending that we weren't hurt.
It's not about saying what happened was okay.
No.
It's about releasing the bitterness and resentment that can poison our hearts and keep us stuck in the past.
It's about choosing to break free from the chains of those negative emotions. And allowing ourselves to heal and move forward.
It's like choosing to lay down a heavy burden that we've been carrying for far too long.
And that takes incredible courage.
It does. Forgiveness is an act of courage.
It is.
Because it often means choosing love over anger. Choosing peace over resentment, even when every fiber of our being wants to hold on to those negative emotions.
Reminds me of what Chucky's Corner said about embracing God's purpose with courage. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is to forgive.
Absolutely. And it's also about recognizing that holding on to unforgiveness hurts us more than anyone else.
Oh, that's so true.
It keeps us trapped in a cycle of pain and prevents us from experiencing the fullness of God's love and grace.
But how do we even begin to forgive someone who has deeply hurt us? Or even forgive ourselves for past mistakes that we regret?
That's a great question, and it's something we can explore in more depth. But first, I want to touch on this other aspect of forgiveness that Chapter 7 talks about, forgiving ourselves. We can be so hard on ourselves. We carry the weight of past mistakes for years, even decades.
I know, I've definitely been guilty of that. It's like we play those past mistakes over and over in our minds, beating ourselves up for things we can't change.
The chapter reminds us that God's grace is sufficient to cover all our shortcomings. When we confess our sins, he forgives us completely.
And just as we need to receive God's forgiveness, we need to extend that same grace to ourselves.
It's about letting go of the guilt and shame that keeps us stuck in the past, preventing us from moving forward into the fullness of who we are meant to be.
It's about recognizing that we're all imperfect. We all make mistakes. But God's love for us is unwavering.
And in that love, we find the freedom to learn from our past, to grow, and to move forward with a sense of hope and purpose.
Now, I want to shift gears for a moment, bring in one final thought-provoking insight from The Path of the Chosen. It's from the very last section of the book. And it really struck a chord with me.
What is it?
It talks about living from blessing to blessing.
That's a beautiful concept. It's about shifting our perspective to see life as a continuous journey of God's blessings, rather than focusing on the gaps or what we feel is lacking.
It's about recognizing that God is constantly at work in our lives. Pouring out his goodness, even in the midst of challenges and trials.
And it's about cultivating a heart of gratitude, appreciating the blessings, both big and small, that come our way each day.
The book encourages us to develop this expectancy mindset.
Oh, I like that.
To believe that God has good things in store for us and to actively look for those blessings in every situation.
It's like putting on a pair of glasses that help us see the world through a lens of abundance rather than scarcity.
I love that analogy. It's about training our minds to focus on the good, to see the possibilities, and to trust that God is always working for our good.
And that ties in so beautifully with what Chucky's Corner was talking about.
It does.
Keeping your gaze forward and letting God guide your path.
It's about choosing to focus on faith, on hope. On the blessings that are already present in our lives, even when things feel challenging.
Exactly. And it's about trusting that even when we can't see the whole picture, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events for our ultimate good.
It's about surrendering control.
It is.
Letting go of the need to figure everything out and allowing ourselves to be guided by a wisdom and a love that's far greater than our own.
It's about walking in faith one step at a time,
Yeah.
knowing that God is with us every step of the way.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with this question.
Okay.
If you were to view your life as a journey from blessing to blessing,
Yeah.
how might that change your perspective on the challenges and opportunities you're facing right now? It really is a powerful way to look at things, like shifting your perspective to see life as a journey.
It is.
From blessing to blessing.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how differently you might approach things. If you truly believed that God had good things in store for you
Right.
around every corner.
It's like an invitation to see the world
Yeah.
through a lens of gratitude and expectancy.
To focus on the abundance that's already there.
Yes.
Instead of always dwelling on what we feel is lacking.
Exactly.
It's choosing to see the glass half full
Right.
instead of half empty.
And that choice
They can
have a ripple effect
Yeah.
in every area of our life.
From our relationships to our finances.
To our overall well-being.
It's about cultivating a mindset that aligns with God's abundance.
Yes.
And letting that mindset shape our thoughts, our actions, and ultimately our experiences.
I love that.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something we talked about a bit earlier.
What's that?
The concept of forgiveness,
Oh, yeah.
especially forgiving ourselves. This is something I think a lot of us struggle with.
I agree.
And Chapter 7 of The Path of the Chosen offers some really helpful insights on how to navigate this process.
It's a journey for sure.
It's not always easy.
But the chapter emphasizes that forgiving ourselves
Yeah,
is just as important as forgiving others.
it is.
In fact, it's often a prerequisite
Okay.
for experiencing true freedom and wholeness.
The chapter talks about how we often hold ourselves to impossible standards,
Yeah.
carrying the weight of past mistakes for far too long.
Way too long.
We replay those mistakes in our minds,
Right.
beating ourselves up for things we can't change.
It's like we're carrying around this heavy baggage from our past,
Yeah,
and it weighs us down,
it does.
preventing us from fully stepping into the present moment
Yeah.
and embracing the future God has for us.
But the chapter reminds us
Yeah.
that God's grace is sufficient
Yes.
to cover all our shortcomings.
As all of them.
When we confess our sins, He forgives us completely.
He does.
And just as we need to receive God's forgiveness, we need to extend that same grace to ourselves.
It's about letting go of the guilt and shame that keep us stuck in that cycle of self-condemnation.
It's about recognizing that we're all imperfect.
Yes,
We all make mistakes.
we do.
But God's love for us is unwavering.
It is a constant.
And that love gives us the freedom to learn from our past, to grow,
Right.
and to move forward with a sense of hope and purpose.
It's about embracing the truth
Yeah.
that we are loved,
Wait.
we are forgiven,
Yeah.
and we are worthy of a second chance.
It's like hitting the reset button
I love that.
on our hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Allowing ourselves to step into the fullness of who God created us to be.
And that freedom allows us to walk with more confidence, more joy,
Yes.
and more purpose.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you were to view your life as a journey from blessing to blessing, as the path of the chosen encourages us to do, how might that change your perspective on the challenges and opportunities you're facing right now?
That's a good one.
How might it shift your mindset,
Yeah.
influence your choices, and shape your overall outlook on life? And remember, for more inspiring messages like the one we discussed from Chucky's Corner,
Yes.
be sure to visit chuckyscorner.com. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.